having a great 4th of July weekend? Lots of great things happening in your lives to help celebrate this special occasion. Well, I think it's very appropriate then that we begin with a David Letterman-style top 10 countdown of the most famous, most infamous, most outstanding children's 4th of July jokes. And here they are, starting with number 10. How come there's no knock-knock joke about America? Because freedom rings. Number 9. What did one flag say to the other flag? Nothing, it just waved. Number 8. Why did Paul Revere ride his horse from Boston to Lexington? Well, because the horse was too heavy to carry. Number 7. How is a healthy person like the United States? They both have good constitutions. Number 6. What dance was very popular in 1776? Independence. What kind of tea did the American colonists want? Liberty. Teacher asks, where was the Declaration of Independence signed? Student says, on the bottom. Number 3, did you hear the one about the Liberty Bell? Yes, it cracked me up. Number 2, what did King George think of the American colonists? He thought they were revolting. Why were the first Americans like ants? Number 1, they lived in colonies. All right, thank you. You can moan, you can groan. It's the 4th of July. We're here to celebrate. We're celebrating freedom. We're celebrating this wonderful liberty that we have in this nation. And today, we're gathered together to celebrate freedom and liberties that we have as spiritual beings. That's right. We have incredible freedoms and liberties that have been given to us that we must awaken to. For the believers, every single day is a celebration of the 4th of July. You see, every single day is a celebration of independence, celebration of that wonderful liberty and freedoms that we have within our lives. As we see in our own nation, we've seen those liberties and freedoms expand most recently in the past week or so. And so it is in our spiritual life. The more we grow, the more we mature, the more we develop, we too see that there are even greater freedoms and spiritual liberties within us. So are you ready to welcome some freedom into your life right now? Welcome a greater awareness, greater understanding, to be more attentive and attuned to what is afforded to you in the freedoms in your spiritual journey. Are you ready? If you're ready, I want you to say, I'm ready. I don't think you're very convincing. Let's try one. I'm ready. Because so much of our spiritual life is this powerful declaration. Throughout the scriptures, we find Jesus constantly calling people to be spiritually awakened, alert, and to be ready. So with that moment, we're ready to discover within our own lives how this freedom unfolds within us on a day-to-day journey. Today's scripture lesson, the text, describes this very dialogue between the Jews and Jesus. They had come to Jesus and were inquiring for more understanding about his teaching. He says very clearly, if you continue in my teaching, if you follow that which I've laid out before you, as a master teacher and a way shower, that which I have placed out before you, if you follow that, you're going to experience something dynamic. You are following and walking in truth, and this truth will set you free. How powerful that statement is for those Jews gathered around at a time wondering, wait a minute, we've never been a slave of anyone or anything. So how is it now you're talking about liberty, freedoms, being set free? You see, Jesus was teaching about a powerful spiritual realm, our lives. As we acknowledge, and the world has struggled all through times more and more, about the understanding that we are spiritual beings living in a physical realm, and that we are in this physical dynamic experiencing the unfolding of that great spiritual freedom and liberty that's been afforded to us. So how do we welcome this greater liberty into our lives? Grab your pen, grab your notebook, whatever it may be. Let's jot these things down, for this is the unfolding of the powerful freedoms within your life. It begins, number 1, by drinking. Yeah, who would have thought? Your pastor's inviting you to let's go drinking. You're right. I'm inviting you to this wonderful understanding of drinking in the waters of living spiritual truth for our lives. Jesus spoke to the woman at the well. inviting her to partake of a living water that would quench all thirst within her life. He illustrated it by the physical as she was at this place to receive water for the animals, for herself, for her home, for her own strengthening and nurturing. Jesus spoke then of a spiritual watering for her. What is the water that Jesus wants to give so freely? It's that water of a clear and new thought consciousness, an awareness and an awakening. For that water is that which is a new understanding that brings us a spiritual revelation, a clarity within our minds. That water cleanses. That water is that which washes away all of our fears, our doubts, our lacks, our insecurities. That water birthed within us something new, and Jesus called it a springing forth of a fountain. You see, as we allow that which is a clarity of thought to be ours, as we allow that which Jesus invited us to do, and all through scriptures it says, embrace a renewing of your mind, a refreshing comes to our lives. That which we've been struggling with is washed away as we confirm and affirm within us that we are a new creature, a new being. We partake of this water that nurtures and strengthens us. Let me tell you this, in our lives, many of us may feel like we're at the desert, barren life, dry environment. Our world and our journey is struggling. We don't see a lot of things springing forth within us. And it's a call for us to come back to this water that can nurture and strengthen us. It's a call for us that to step out of our own bondages into freedoms, that we may just simply be not drinking enough. Drink, drink, drink of this wonderful consciousness, of this wonderful awareness that God has for you, that all things work together for good, that there are beautiful promises for us to reach out and to embrace within our life. Drink of it more and more and more, and discover that that dry, thirst, or barren place within you will be now like a fountain springing forth within your life. Where that new consciousness opens our lives to these promises, opens us to begin to think and dwell and speak from those perspectives that change everything for us. We may have thought our world was this way, but we can embrace the understanding of God's unfolding that it's a new way, a different way, a better way. The water is the very source of our life-giving faith, and it liberates us from fears and bondages of this physical realm. It nurtures us and strengthens us. Let me tell you, our freedom begins when we begin to drink. So let us drink of the water and begin in that new life. Secondly, let me say, it begins by watching what you eat. For Matthew chapter 15:11 speaks very clearly to us in this context as Jesus visited with those, saying it's not about what you take into your mouth that defiles you. It's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. You see, he was not only talking about the kosher laws and the rituals of Jewish traditions around what is good to eat and what is not good to eat. He's speaking more so about us. What are we taking in that comes out of our lives? Watch what you eat. So here it is. It's not so much about watching what we eat, whether it's chocolate or fatty foods or greasy things. It's about understanding that what we take in that feeds us, what's coming into our life, to be very conscious, be very alert, be aware of. What are we taking into our lives? Because what feeds us is what's going to manifest through us. It's as simple as this. We know that your thoughts come into our lives and form our subconscious, right? All of the thoughts that we've been bombarded with all day long, they come into us. We store them in our subconscious. We receive them. And from our subconscious, that's how we act. That's how we live out. This is what manifests and takes form. That's why so many times as we've entertained maybe a racist thought, and then we encounter someone of a different racial background than us, our subconscious may respond in a racial action, phrase, or expression. We find this so true in our lives, so we guide ourselves into a new understanding to say, wait a minute, I need to look to see what I'm taking in because it may manifest, come forth, be out of my subconscious. And I may just subconsciously act from this place. Watch what we eat. Watch what we take in. It's truly time to look at the menu before we eat, shall we say, in the spiritual journey of our lives. Looking to see, where are we being fed? Are we on a diet of gossip and negativity, hate and judgment? Are we on a diet that is full of fear, self-hatred, shame, or guilt? Because those things come into our life. They form in our subconscious, and they respond in form and in attitude and action that comes through our lives. Jesus spoke very clearly, giving us this wonderful direction that we have to be careful of what we're taking in. And some people say, well, what if I don't take in anything? Can you imagine if we're not eating at all? We're on that diet. We get thinner and thinner and thinner, weaker and weaker and weaker. Sometimes we're not taking in that spiritual nurturing and support, those words of encouragement, that love that can come to us from one another, that strengthens us in the journey. If we're not taking it in, we may find that we too grow weak and weary. Watch what we eat. Third thing is, our freedom begins when we are really practicing that which we know. Here at City of Light, we offer you 5 different classes for you to experience spiritual growth. There's opportunities for you to attend these different classes that really enlighten people and are awakening people to a new understanding of God's relationship with you and your relationship with the divine. When we awaken to that, we have to put it into practice. No sense in receiving all this good information, no sense in attending these classes if you're not willing to practice them. Because this is the important thing of our lives, as James chapter 1:22 says, be not just hearers, but be doers. Not just hearers of the teaching, but doers of it, practicing it. We practice our craft. We practice our calling. We practice our purpose. We live it out on a day-to-day basis. This is how we become the people who we are called to be. The very word sin is the Greek word hamartia, meaning to miss the mark. It simply means that those things that we've made an endeavor at, we haven't been great at. We haven't been successful at. We've missed the mark. Like an archer pulling back the bow, shooting the arrow, but missing the target. Yet those who see and learn from that experience become better at hitting the target. So it is, the amateur misses the mark, but those who practice become the professionals who hit the target. This is the experience of our freedom and our liberty. It's found in when we are really ready to practice that which we've learned, that which we've received. So we've talked about stepping out in faith. We've talked about taking risks. We've talked about being people who claim and affirm the goodness of God. We talked about, from down through the weeks, of being a kind of people that we're called to be a light for the world. Our freedom is really expressed when we practice just those things. Today's the day to begin that renewed calling to say, I'm going to practice. Your past can be that which may be holding you back. And number 3, the thing that's going to bring you to freedom is your cleansing. Taking time to do a little internal cleansing in our lives, to practice the forgiveness that can purify our very hearts and minds of these accumulated feelings. You know how it is, you get a lot of bombarded stuff coming against you week after week. You go through the week and you got a lot of feelings come against you. You may watch the news, you may read the papers, you may be involved in some of the activities of the media and conversations of the world around you that just sort of bombard you with these kind of feelings. And it's really important that we do some cleansing, some cleaning out, that time in meditation that allows everything to be released, everything to be removed. How powerful it is as we sit in a centering meditation, a quietness. It's like we pull the plug on the bathtub and allow everything to drain out and allow that wonderful place of a void then to be filled with the goodness. How important it is that we've taken this time to do some internal cleansing, because our past sometimes is holding us hostage from those freedoms that we'd like to embrace and live out. Our yesterdays and its baggage can be weighing us down. And so it is that we've got to release and live in this now. And you cannot fully live in this moment if you've not released all that is a past. Because sometimes we're living this world like we're one person with one foot, a person with one foot in the past and one foot in the present. And we wonder why we keep tripping and falling. It's because we're still carrying on all of those things. And let me just say, it's not just things people say, oh, 10 years ago, I let that go. 15 years ago, I let that. I'm talking about what happened yesterday. I'm talking about what happened this week. Have we worked to cleanse, to let go of those things, to set ourselves free, to be liberated and experience that? To be able to put both feet on solid ground in the now is so important. Right here in this moment. Not one foot in the past, not one foot here, and trying to stabilize our lives, but both feet grounded in this very moment, having said, I have released everything. There is nothing holding me back. I've let it go. We can really experience our freedoms when we are beginning with a journey of agreeing with life and its goodness. For God is the all good, and when we understand that, we realize that all goodness is around about us. I want to tell you this, that when you breathe, everyone take a deep breath. Breath has everything that you need in it. Do you know that? It does. Breath is this wonderful oxygen. And from that oxygen, everything within the body begins to move and vibrate. Blood cells come alive. The heart survives and pumps with the wonderful influx of oxygen coming in. Everything you need is in that breath. Now, who's breathing? Who's breathing? Well, we'd say, well, I'm breathing, am I not? Is it not just me? Is it my lungs? Is it my brain? What's doing the breathing? It's this incredible life force. Because let me tell you, if it was you doing the breathing, with all your distractions, you'd forget to do it. We'd all be passing out. We'd turn blue in the face. It's not us who's breathing. It's this divine force within us. And what is that divine force? It's God. God is alive within us. Every breath we're taking is providing everything we need. Every breath is that divine essence, and it is God ever speaking to us that everything you need is captured within that very breath and symbolic of the journey of your day-to-day living. This is why it's so important that we understand, that we begin to agree. We understand that every breath is providing all we need. Every breath is the divine presence. Every breath is the God within us alive. Every breath is saying it's all there. You need not fear. Everything you need is with you and therefore you. So when we understand this, we can really embrace and agree with the all good. For it's only when we come to this place of agreement with this truth that real freedom can begin within us. Otherwise, we're held bondage to our fears and our outlooks of fears constantly within us. Because if you're not coming to life, you're not coming from this perspective, goodness, you're coming at life every perspective of fear. Something is holding you back. Unless you come into this full agreement, your day-to-day experience is going to begin from the idea that the world's out to get me. Someone's going to cheat me today. You may believe in this concept that someone's going to create a world that's unsafe for you. And these thoughts then hold you victim as you are in agreement with those. Doubt, fear, worry, anxiety then rule our awareness. And you know what happens? They actually produce some toxic chemicals within our body that hold us back. It's amazing what fear will do to you, what doubt, worry, and stress can do to your physical body. How important it is for us to experience this freedom that we're calling and that we want to live out in our spiritual life when we agree that the all good is with us right now. And we breathe and know that everything we need is in that breath. And that God is in that breath with us, in us, through us, all about us. When you realize that you must trust in the very foundation of God, when you realize this, that it is God's goodness, then you must believe in the possibilities. Because your whole world begins to take on a new dynamic. It's not a world where you're constantly asking, how? How can this be? How will this ever happen? Instead, it's not a world of how, it's a world of I believe all things are possible. And there's a whole different approach to life. Let me tell you, down through scriptures, we've been given teaching illustrations for us of those people who ask the how first, always wondering, wait a minute, I need to know the facts. I need to know this. I need to know the steps to take. I need to know how it's all going to unfold. And the how is totally left in God's hands. Our job is not to ask the how. Our job is to say, I believe. Our job in the journey of faith is that of acknowledging great possibilities. How about doubting Thomas? We look at his life story, doubting from the very get-go that it became his very legacy in our world today. Thomas, synonymous with the doubt and fear and questioning that says, how can this be? How will this ever be? Only unless I stick my finger in this Jesus' side will I believe. You see, doubt led and guided his thinking. How about the tribes of Israel? As they had marched for years, getting ready to move into a promised land, yet when they got to the edge of it, kept wondering, how are we going to go in and claim this promised land? There's all kinds of obstacles there. How will this be? How will this be accomplished in our life? How about Sarah, Abraham's wife, who, when told that the miraculous birth was coming to her, that she would give forth a baby, she asked, how? Wait a minute. I'm not going to believe any of this until I know first the how. Then I'll start the believing. But let me show you some Bible stories that illustrate this truth for our lives, of those who took this first step in saying all things are possible and ignited their faith in believing. How about David and Goliath? David picking up the stones, not even asking the how, but going out to slay the giant. How about Daniel in the lion's den, being placed in the midst of the lions and all of the atrocity of the moment of being devoured by these ferocious beasts? Didn't ask how. How is God going to take care of me? How am I going to survive? Walked into the scenario knowing all things are possible. How about the children of Israel who walked around the walls of Jericho? Did they ask every day, how is this going to happen? How are the walls going to fall? How will these barriers be removed? They just marched in triumph, knowing and belief all things are possible. Let me tell you this, our freedom is based not in every day seeking the how, or every day looking for the perspective of fear and wondering, who's going to cheat me? What's going to work against me? What are the odds that I'm going to be successful today? And how will that unfold? Instead, our freedom is lived out when we walk into the day saying, I know, I know, I know all things are possible. It's a big difference. Now, through the years of my ministry, I've just let go of the how in so many shapes and forms. It creeps back. But the release of that, just saying, God, when I walk in divine trust, when I walk in complete knowing, all things will truly work together for my good. I want you to know that in my life, my father taught me something very simple. Never ask the salary before you take the job. Sounds kind of strange in the world today. No one would offer that kind of business advice to anybody. They'd say, well, you need to know the salary before you take any job. All my years, 37 years of ordained ministry and the different positions I've taken, I've never inquired what the salary was. I inquired first, is this the right job for me? First and foremost, I had to say, is this where I belong? Is this my calling? Is this my purpose? Because the how is up to God of how that will take care of me and how the ways will be made for me and how the doors will open for me, how provision will be provided for me. That's God's job. Mine is the simple trust in the very promises that every day I just believe, is this the right thing that God has for me? Is this the unfolding of the divine plan for this universe that wants to unfold within my life? Is this where I need to be and should be? Is this my calling and my purpose? Years ago, I took one of my positions. I had taken a little bit of a hiatus, and I was working in a marketing company, making an incredible salary, had a beautiful apartment, living right downtown in a major city. But yet the opportunity came for me to be the pastor of the local congregation. And I had been praying about it, and I knew within my heart this is where I was meant to be. I had a job that was paying well over $50,000. In those years, 20, 30 years ago, that was an incredible salary. So I offered my services. I was selected to be their pastor. I was so excited. I knew this is where God wanted me to be. And my first meeting after accepting the job, I sat down with the board of directors, and one of the board says, Pastor, we're going to try to pay you. We're going to try to pay you. I think we can come up with $18,000 a year, full-time salary. We're going to try. Wow. You can imagine how disconcerting that might be. It's not, when you know that the how is not your job. The how is God's divine unfolding for our lives, and that's the freedom and the liberty. Because let me tell you this, when we go out to look for those jobs that will say, wait a minute, it's all about the salary and what's it going to be, we may be imprisoned in those things that we're there just for the wrong reason. But when we're there in the right reason, all things come together for good, and God is making this wonderful way. For the divine unfolding of that goodness is just in natural flow. It's in a natural place for our lives. I want you to know that when I left that place and that ministry, that congregation, I was making 3 times what they offered me. Wonderful benefits. They had leased a Cadillac for me to drive. I'm going to say to this that it was wonderful blessings of prosperity. I'm grateful for them. My life is not all about material prosperity, for the blessings of spiritual growth and development were far greater and outweighed that in the journey of not asking the how, but walking in the possibilities. I want to tell you this. This is the very essence and recipe for the freedom in our lives as we begin to drink of this very truth, as we begin to eat and watch what we eat and take in, as we begin to practice, and exercise the faith that we say we believe and that we talk about all the time. When we begin to cleanse and release those barriers and obstacles that may hold back the divine flow of goodness. And when we walk in a total agreement, the God that we breathe in has brought all that you need right here and now. When we're in that place, we walk in liberty and freedom. Every day is Independence Day as we do so. Are you ready? Are you ready? Independence and freedom is yours as you walk in this journey.